Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the EuroShow here on Talking Stations. This is, I think, episode number 4, in actual fact. We have in on the show today, Caleb Ariana.
Hey guys.
And we also have Dr. Spot. Spot, how you doing? Spot?
He's looking for the pedal.
Oh God! Right at the wrong time. Right at the wrong time. Right. Spot is here.
Beans. There we go.
There we go.
Fixed it. Hello, I am alive. I can speak.
Nice. So yeah, we have a bit of an interesting kind of show. There's been some turmoil and some interesting kind of stuff going on, during this week since Tuesday. And we're also going to kind of, I think we're going to tackle a little bit of the reoccurring microtransaction-y kind of stuff as well today. But first, we're going to start with a topic about basically how to reward your community, right? If you're a game developer, and so basically this is about Grand Theft Auto, of all things. If you haven't heard the news or haven't sort of seen any gaming news, basically, there was a guy, modder enthusiast for Grand Theft Auto, who essentially solved an age-old issue that Grand Theft Auto Online has had. In terms of loading times, like literally slashed loading times by like 70% with some tweaks and stuff that he found out and he figured out. And Rockstar, the developers of Grand Theft Auto, paid him $10,000.
Well, he's
what do you think
potentially
about that?
going to make them more money. This is just one of those stories that I kind of like, the whole armchair developer approach, and the modders and the freaks. I think we have one on the show today, so
Rude.
Slightly rude, but yes, I remember Spot was playing around with running the Eve client on laptops, and he was raging at it and trying to figure out how to get his laptop to stop being dumb. And this is just very similar, right? It's just a nerd sitting there going, "This is dumb. Why is it taking so long to load? This must be a mistake. This can't be a normal thing," right? So he finally figured out exactly what the mistake was, and it was kind of funny because it was supposed to be a linear calculation, but the way that it tried to handle it, it ended up being an exponential one, so it was doing like thousands of calculations instead, and it just took
it was more than that. It was more than that. There's a kind of we've got the actual kind of article written by the guy called Tost, T0ST. He literally sort of is talking about how many like all the different kind of aspects to loading that's going through, and apparently there was like something like 2 billion additional checks that the game was doing that it had absolutely zero need or reason to be doing whatsoever.
Wow,
which was just ridiculous. I'm trying to find the actual.
I can imagine there's a developer somewhere. I could just picture the conversation where a manager came to the development team and said over and over, "The game, we love the game, but there's one big problem, and it just takes forever to load. Can you fix that?" And I bet there was these 2 programmers, maybe even just one, that worked on the loading logic. And even to this day, he was like, "No, it's as good as it's ever going to get." And then you get some cheeky guy that's just poking around pretty much with a hex editor, as far as I can tell, and just tweaking some knobs. And all of a sudden, he gets it an order of magnitude quicker. It's just, us developers are what you might call lazy to a fault, in the sense of, if we don't want to do it, we'll just tell you it doesn't work.
Yeah. So all in all, Tost estimates that 1,984,531,500 checks take place, taking a ton of CPU time. Game does this to make sure that there's no duplicate items, but given that the list is completely empty to start with, and the file being loaded has no duplicates, the check is essentially pointless.
And this is just one of those cases where if you did the I build a bridge calculation, it would be kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
How many hours have this potentially saved in the future compared to how many hours have been wasted in the past, right?
And just
that
the general
would be astronomical. So the fact that he got 10,000, I think, is a very, very small fraction of the money he has actually saved the player base of this game.
It is, and also to people coming into the game fairly new, the general player experience of loading times. Everyone hates loading times for games. There was, I can't remember what it was. I think it was Anthem had like hilariously long loading times as well, and people hated that.
Well, I love my PS4, right? I really had some good times on it, but I don't understand the loading times. It's like I bought the bigger one with the nice, faster SSD, and it still takes forever to load. The amount of wasted time that I have when I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it's like, this is ridiculous. How is this so bad?
Well, when it comes to PC, like, you also have to sort of, make sure that it isn't just hardware kind of bottlenecks in terms of loading time. But the nice thing that I think that I really like, and that I think Rockstar does really, really well, is they're part of this. They basically have they're sort of, I think they're signed up. They're sort of partners with this group called HackerOne. And basically what HackerOne is, essentially they're like white collar hackers who have basically built a business, partnering with various different software developers, and they stress, not stress test, they basically
penetration test, like and vulnerability test, like hardware and that kind of software, and if they find something, essentially, because they partnered with various different people like Rockstar Games, allows them to basically distributes rewards based on the vulnerability submissions. So here, specifically with Rockstar, like they say, like their rewards, our minimum bounty for a successful vulnerability submission is $150. Depending on the severity and complexity, they can go higher, which obviously they did this time because they went to 10,000, which is really cool. But I think more people should do this. More developers should do this. I'm not entirely certain whether CCP does this, but they should, because I think that it's very useful. I think.
Yeah.
There used to be, I don't know whether it still exists, but there was like I can't remember what they called it. It was like Plex for snitches or something like that, where you could get Plex in exchange for, I think it was, if you revealed how a certain hack or cheat or exploit worked. But I'm not sure if that still exists. But there's sort of two sides of it. There's the sort of snitching on cheating, I suppose, snitching on cheat tools, and then there's also the actual. There's the bug bounty is what they typically call it. It's quite common to have bug bounties across the tech industry. Not so much in games, because as much as games are prevalent everywhere and the security of them is actually quite important, it doesn't necessarily get looked on that way that much. And so publishers and whatnot are a little bit can't be asked, to be frank, when it comes to things like bug bounties. This case was quite surprising. I really thought, when I heard about this, before they'd paid him the reward for this fix, essentially, it was really in that zone where you hear about fixes and mods, I suppose, tweaks like this, and the developer either goes one way or the other, or got a third option. They either say nothing and just ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist, or they get really, really upset and they and they ban everybody that uses this thing, and they claim it's a cheat, and they shut it down, and they throw their toys out the pram because they've been proven to have made a mistake.
I think if I remember correctly, I think Blizzard has kind of Activision Blizzard has kind of done a little bit of that with regards to Warcraft Reforged or something of that form. Like, I think I've heard that they've like it may actually, no, I tell a lie. I think it was actually Bethesda. To be honest, that makes more sense. That sounds like a Bethesda thing to me. With Fallout 4. But yeah, I think they caught some heat doing that as well. Basically, chastising people who have come and to try and help them fix their game by exposing like issues with the game in some way, shape, or form, or like something that can be hacked or something that can be exploited, as it were.
So we should send Spot to Iceland and get a 100,000 reward to fix postcode.
Well, I was thinking like they're already kind of sort of fairly similar-ish sort of situations that have happened to Eve, and like Eve is a bit of a different one because like a lot of the game code is always checked by by the server before it actually believes what it's seeing, kind of thing. Which a lot of games don't. A lot of games just believe the information coming to them from the clients, right?
There's on the actual almost exact subject of not necessarily submitted or anything to do with a user or a player doing it, but CCP have actually recently made a major change to the game that 99.999% of people won't notice, but it does improve load times, and that's the removal of bulk data. You might remember in the days of old, you would always start logging in and then there'd be a screen saying, I can't even remember what it said, something like loading bulk data, and that would be the vast majority of your load time. And so CCP have finally gone back and killed that.
Oh, that's good.
But on the sort of throwing the toys out the pram, I recall CCP doing this as well, but it was a long time ago on a slight, not the exact same story, but I have memory and I can't remember too much detail because I was a kid at the time. It was that long ago. I believe somebody made like a flash game of some sort that was using Eve assets, and it was quite good and it got really popular really, really quickly on the forums or something like that. And CCP shut it down because it was using their assets, and there was that sort of that danger of when you if you don't act on something like that, you've got the positive of your fans will love it, but you've got the negative of your lawyers are gonna hate you because you're essentially letting people take your copyright, which sets a bad precedent for the future.
Yeah, we've seen the kind of like issue with CCP's copyright, like appearing in different games here, there, and everywhere, right? Like, I mean, even in Western competitors, like some stuff appearing in on Star Citizen, stuff like that. But like when I was sort of thinking about like parallels with this to CCP and to EVE Online, the only one I think I could really kind of think of is the sort of well, not really request. This is basically like an idea that was generated by the community that CCP implemented, which was essentially time dilation. But nobody, got reimbursed monetarily for that. It was just essentially a fix to help the servers deal with significant volumes of players trying to fight it out.
Well, you can say that the difference between code and services, I think they kind of overlap a little bit, because when you look at the history of EVE Online, many things have been like discontinued or pulled out or completely removed because the player base pretty much took over these services. And if you include the whole third-party service development stuff, I think that's a relevant topic, especially because of the whole IP thing. Because if you think about it, we have an in-game map feature in EVE Online. Nobody really uses it much because we all use the out-of-game third-party services instead. And you can say that that's actually a potential weakness, right? It's CCP weakening their own IP that they let the player base dominate some of the essential services. You have the same with something like EFT and Python and all of these fitting tools, right? Of course, players will need more expert tools for some things, but the fact that it took forever for CCP to actually make the in-game version decent enough to actually be an alternative.
But you don't want to you don't want to disenfranchise the people making third party tools though, like because if you as a developer allow people to make tools and then take those tools and basically implement them into the game, but and essentially make their tools obsolete because there's a faster, practically identical alternative in the game, then I think it's a little bit harsh.
But it's supposed to be a race. This is my argument. And we had a long discussion in Voice the other night. And I was raging at CCP for this because it's supposed to be a competitive race where CCP updates their feature, the player base makes a better third-party version, then CCP upgrades, and so on and so forth. If CCP just yanks their stuff out of their game or completely ignores it, then you're basically handling a feature monopoly to the player base, which gives them a lot more pull, right? Because essentially you can say that many of the services that the third-party developers provide right now, it is so required to play the game effectively that without them, the game would have problems.
Yeah. But you saw EVE Marketer went down for barely a day, I think, about a week ago. And in forums, Reddit, Discords, people were running around with their heads on fire because people rely on these services like really centrally. On the word central, if anyone remembers, EVE Central was the way to get your market data and the pricing data. And when that went down, people were sitting there refreshing their status page for the next 4 years, hoping it would come back. And it never did.
I think in the case of EVE Central, if I'm not mistaken, EVE Central was actually also one of the old sites that were the first to actually do scraping. The early market tools all pretty much, well, I think the market tools especially pushed CCP to even develop the API the way that they did, and now of course the ESI. But when it comes to how to manage kill mails and how to scrape markets, these things only exist because players started doing these things. It's funny that there was an exact parallel story in Albion, and the ironic part was that it was actually a former CCP developer that started doing market scraping in Albion and developing the tool exactly like it had been done like 10, 12 years ago in EVE Online. But again, I stand by the fact that something like EVE University Wiki, which is amazing, and I love the fact that they've done it. And of course, University has their wiki, and it's also amazing. But the fact that CCP has discontinued theirs is really a problem because you're handing these functions to the player base, and when CKill goes down, it's like everyone goes, "What? Can't play, right?" Completely unplayable game. Same if Dotlan isn't working, everyone starts screaming at CCP to fix the ESI stuff because you can't play without these tools. And I just think that CCP needs to step up and make sure that the game is potentially playable without them, because otherwise you won't have a competition. And yes, you should even steal their ideas. They don't own those ideas because it's CCP's IP, and unless it's something that's got novelty height of a massive degree where it's patentable, just copy it. Copy the players. They have to innovate. If they don't, they can't really create an alternative.
Okay.
Or as in the case of GTA, pay them for their thing and integrate it officially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'll definitely streamline it and smooth out any ruffled feathers they have in any way, shape, or form. Like,
and it also
I'd be happy for a paycheck
because I think Spot has said this, and now I'm quoting him, and hanging him out to dry and stuff. But
Oh no.
the third-party developers, yes, they're good.
Oh no.
They're not that good.
Well, I've got a habit of bitching about third-party tools in that generally what I've observed from pretty much every single Eve tool almost ever, they're almost always made by tinkerers, IT guys. And when I say IT guys, I mean like sysadmins, engineers, stuff like this. People that programming is maybe part of their career, but it's not their cornerstone.
Yeah,
And so
they don't have the quality assurance, and they definitely does not have the UI, right?
They're using it they're using Eve as an exploratory tool for just trying out and growing their skill base. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly. For a lot of those people, and actually including myself, these things actually launched their careers. My career was launched by making an Eve Kickstarter loan system that never got released, but I demoed it and got a job off it. But yeah, the quote that Caleb was going for was, my point is, you find a lot of these projects either get abandoned very quickly or they just never reach a state of polish. Yeah, they always either look like GeoCities or they're just a little bit janky and a bit rough around the edges. They never quite get there to that really nice polished product stage. A couple of the mobile apps are quite nice though.
And another problem is that when CCP does not have these things in-house, they're also handicapping themselves in how to use them to cross-integrate, right?
I guess that's true, yeah.
And I think that's a massive handicap. Like, if they had a really well-functioning wiki and the wiki was running on some external stuff, then the whole way that you could manage something like item information, these things would basically be linked, right? So item descriptions and all that stuff would be refreshed by wiki entries that the players make based on things like lore or making them longer, and they could then be basically pulled back into the game client, well, because they're already safe and quality checked. So I think that they're shooting themselves in the foot when they're doing things like discontinuing something like the wiki. And then someone said to me, because I was complaining, well, why don't you just go and fill out the missing data on Eve University? And it's like, why should I give another Eve organization my labor when I'm not being compensated for it? Why should I help them build their brand?
Great to good.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, but I would do that with CCP's wiki, but I'm not going to do that with Eve University. And again, I'm definitely not going to do that if it's completely shut off from the community, right? If I do that for, say, Goon Wiki, sure, it helps other goons, but it doesn't improve the game for the rest of the player base. So yes, I'm being tribal, but I'm kind of cutting off the value added of the work that I've done, because
maybe this could become another sort of feather in CCP's cap with regards to the partners program, potentially. Not just helping out, like, people who make content like we make content, but also who help the community with regards to like things like Wikipedia, sort of Eve wikis and other things in that regard.
And
is UniWiki not a partner?
I'm not entirely certain. I haven't checked, but I was just kind of thinking with regards to remuneration, essentially.
UniWiki, if anyone needs double, triple partner status, that archive of work is so invaluable, and it's one of those things that sadly, actually, over the last couple of years, at least in my eyes, has been left a bit fallow. Not by any fault of the UniWiki sort of team, it's just player contributions, I think, on that side have dropped off.
It's a lot of work and a lot of stuff to keep updated. I think that's one of the things that CCP found out with regards to, keeping their wiki up to date, and that's probably one of the reasons why they actually sort of ended up canning it eventually. But anyway, we're gonna
all the plex so they can pay people.
We'll probably carry on with this subject, after the show in the Discord, I think. But we're going to go to a quick break with a word from our sponsors. And remember, if you want an advert in this sort of in between all of these various different ads, then get in touch with us and we can kind of we can make something happen, I think.
Some ugly skins.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We played Spod's inaugural kind of advert there, but he screwed up the sizing.
You.
No, you screwed up.
So if you're sending us adverts, to play on the show, like, just, please make them 1080p. The 1080p's, I think we're going to go, you can either do 30 or 60 FPS. I don't think it's really going to matter that too much, but basically like 10 seconds, essentially like the same sort of, the same requirements as CCP were sort of puts out for, when they used to do the Alliance tournament kind of stuff. So if you want those included into one of our shows, let us know. Make sure it's 1080p, otherwise it doesn't get cropped. I'm going to have to sort that out after the show, sort of thing. But anyway, on to the next topic. There was a little bit of an issue. There was a little bit of controversy at EA, I believe. I don't know if anybody's seen what's been going on, but EA seems to have been caught, or at least some sort of employee or employees of EA seem to have been caught with their hand in the cookie jar to some degree. Does anybody want to sort of do the rundown on this, or do you want me to do the rundown on this?
This is yours. This is an EA story. This is your story.
I have no connection to EA. I have no connection whatsoever.
You kind of love to hate them as much as you love to hate Star Citizen. It's like, this is like a pet thing for you. It's like, oh my god, EA did a bad batch. It's like, yes, it's Monday, so what?
Yeah. EA did a bad thing. Oh, by the way, the day ends in Y, by the way, as well.
Exactly.
Like, but essentially this revolves around FIFA, and I can completely understand if none of you play FIFA. If some of you do, fantastic. If you don't, then then just be glad that if you do play FIFA, chances are you probably have more, more spare money in your bank account more often than not than people who do play FIFA. Because that thing is a cash cow for EA for all the wrong reasons. Anyway, the controversy specifically is with regards to FIFA Ultimate Teams. Essentially, someone either an employee of EA or someone with access to EA accounts has been directly trading probably the most expensive, the most rare, and most powerful kind of items in the in FIFA Ultimate Teams for literally thousands of dollars. And obviously it got out, and people are pretty fucking mad about it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of T20, and has sort of it has kind of inklings a little bit as well of like World War B / casino.
Well, I think it ties more back to the fact that the whole thing was reverse engineered, right? I think that's an important factor.
It was like once people found like what these cards were and were able to sort of see them and that kind of stuff, they were able to reverse engineer how long it would take you and how much money it would cost you to be able to get these things. And it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. Like quickly find a bit of information regarding it. If you don't know what like FIFA Ultimate Teams is, it's almost basically like a cross between like a card, kind of like a virtual card game / like Championship Manager, where your gameplay revolves around the stats of the players of the team that you create with these cards. And then you can play them against other people with other teams of different stats of different players, or against the sort of computer and that kind of thing. You generate money, you generate sort of like, well, not like in-game sort of money and various different things by doing so, essentially. So the first story. Sorry, go for it.
So is my understanding the core of this controversy is like the guy at the Pokemon card factory when he's packing the cards into the packs, he's putting the shiny Charizards in his back pocket to sell on eBay. Is that sort of the gist of it?
That is essentially it. Yeah. He is essentially putting the card in his back pocket and then selling it, kind of thing. But instead of it being sort of instead of it being sort of out the back by the bins sort of thing where he's selling it, he's literally, it's coming to you via post, delivered to you on with a thank you for purchasing this with headed paper from EA, that kind of thing.
Can I just say that the fact that you're showing this page made me think of the old EveGate. If I was EA, I would actually make their main portal named eGate just to take this thing away forever.
Just own it. Like we're just going to own it.
Completely rebrand it so you can't use it in this context. That would be fun because, well, I think you just covered that EA Gate is pretty much every day starting with a Y, ending in a Y.
Just to some degree and to some levels. Like, I mean, yeah, they own a lot of different IPs, but like they seem to always fall into this situation. And the kind of it's just kind of crazy because the other thing is, a fantastic thing is, right, and this is how that it's that it's going to be cleared up, very, very very correctly and precisely and sort of holistically. But they're conducting an internal investigation, so don't worry, guys. They'll find the people capable, the people who were responsible for doing this.
I think this is one of those EA's version of just trust us, and the entire player base just falls down laughing.
Don't worry, guys. An internal investigation by the people who have who ended up swindling people are going to find the people responsible. The fact that, sorry, what?
It's just also it's the weakness of having an organization as big as EA, right? When you have this monopolistic way of gobbling titles and having this massive umbrella of things going on underneath you, these lapses in oversight and quality assurance and cleaning your own house, it's just bound to happen. You can't really. It's ironically very similar to our endless discussion in EVE Online about toxic personalities. You can't really know what's happening that many stages and steps down the stairs, right? It's just impossible. So you get these endless horror stories from organizations this size, right? And they don't have enough, interest in actually having a proper damage control team.
Yeah, exactly. So this also touches on microtransactions, because it's something that has basically sparked people into like trying to wrap their heads around like the sheer scope and scale of the microtransactions in this mode in FIFA, right? And I'm going to quickly cross to this Twitter thread. Basically, this guy created a chart to basically show you how much time and money it takes to earn the top players in Ultimate Teams through 3 different ways, like matches, where you obviously win or draw, you gain some stuff that allows you to eventually purchase things and purchase new players and new cards, that kind of thing. Trading, which obviously trading up and that kind of thing to get better cards and that kind of thing, or just buying it straight out, right, using the in-game currency that that EA uses called FIFA points, right? So
these things are just all the same, right? We should almost have like the equivalent of a sound deck, but with visuals that we can push, right? Skinner boxing, artificial scarcity, slot machine stuff, sunken fallacy stuff. It's all the same psychology that all these game developers are trying to put into their games. And when there's like controversy or people actually notice and figure it out and do the reverse engineering, there's this sorry, and then they do the whole mea culpa and try to do a walk of shame, and then it's all good and fine afterwards. It's not. Stop doing this, or at least be honest in advance instead, right? This is why I hate the whole thing with gambling and loot boxing and all that stuff. The fact that I can't be allowed to do EVE bet like gambling in EVE Online, which is a valid form of gambling. This is legit. This is obvious. I know what this is. Instead, they have to do all these shenanigans and loopholes to try to get the similar-esque services and try to hoodwink you into gambling or into adding money to the game and the services. It's like that they don't want to be upfront about what they're selling.
Yeah, and so just looking at this particular graph, right, like essentially what this is saying is like for each individual player, and obviously there's multiple players on a team selection, right? Like, the top 5 players are going to cost you about just under $6,000 each, in terms of if you're just buying it via FIFA points. But like anything from, almost 8,000, like over just under 8,500 match hours to play, 750 trading hours, assuming various different aspects of it. It's like basically it's completely insane in terms of how long it would take you or how much it would take you to sort of to get to having the best team that you can get on FIFA Ultimate Teams. And they claim, this is one of those things where they claim that you can achieve these things in game, whereas in actual fact it's really not the case. Like, it takes such a long time that unlike something like EVE Online, EA refreshes and renews this game sort of every year or every 2 years, so it's a completely new game. Everything that you'd collected and everything that you spent money on the previous game isn't given to you or rolled over to the next game. Like, that's dead and buried. You're on to the next one. This is how.
What did they say?
Not to do microtransactions.
The last time they did exactly this, what they had a tagline that became a meme everywhere for ages, because they did this almost exact same crap with having, you can get it in game, but it requires Brazilian. It was Darth Vader.
It was
in the Star Wars game.
It was Star Wars Battlefront, and they put this together. They put this tweet, which was the most downvoted tweet. Almost downvoted Reddit post, which was we think that we think that our customers would prefer the sense of pride and accomplishment to grind all of these things in game rather than buying them. That's what they were basically saying. It's just literally the most ridiculously absurd thing to say. But we should probably move on because we've only got like 7 or 8 minutes for the next segment.
You have to put up the screenshot of the Tesla, because that's the most amazing thing I've seen this week.
The Tesla. Yeah, that
is just so fucking cool.
So we're going to go back into cloud gaming as well, because I mean, for one, it's a fun thing. For two, there's been some additional kind of stuff happening. And three,
for three, we have Spot.
And for 3, we have Spot. So the Tesla thing, it's fantastic. Here it is. Essentially, someone heard that you can play Eve anywhere, so they tried it on their Tesla, and it seems to work.
Amazing. So this should literally be the advert for this service, right? From CCP.
Yeah.
Even in a Tesla, when you're driving in a car that can kind of do the auto driving, that's when you want this.
So you want to Eveception this. You want to have Tesla on autopilot while autopiloting a freighter in high sec.
Yep, that's synchronous autopiloting.
Yeah, the one I'm waiting for is somebody who's got a one of those Samsung smart fridges. It's got a browser in it, and it's got a screen, so you can play Eve on your fridge if you really want to.
There should be a thread right now on the Eve forums where you just
Eve in stupid places.
Yes, and
yes.
Where people do the Raspberry Pis that are playing Eve on crap monitors, so you can't really make out what's actually going on.
I do have to say something though, a very important thing. If you're driving your Tesla, don't play Eve in the background. Like, the reason, like, even though Teslas do have autopilots, like they require you to keep apprised as to what the car's doing, not trying to gank somebody in high sec or like, fucking fight goons in Dell sort of thing, right? While you're in the middle of, potentially, careering into a car. So, keep your eyes on the road and keep apprised of the situation that, that you're in real life. Don't play Eve while driving a Tesla. Play Eve in a Tesla when it's parked up and charging.
Or if you're the passenger.
Or if you're the passenger. Yeah. So just a PSA there.
But the whole point with the cloud services, I found a little bit interesting. It's the thing that I think Spot introduced a little bit of it when he talked about pricing and stuff, and there was some news this week.
In video.
I think this is valid because, funny enough, I then asked Spot about the pricing of the it's basically most likely virtual machines really running these things, and it's like these servers are now so cheap, so it's not really a factor anymore. But bandwidth is still not cheap, right? It's really the problem right now of getting all of these services to a price point where it's manageable and viable.
It's all about, not only is it just because when you're watching a YouTube video, because if you try and compare it to that, because functionally it's not that different to watching a Twitch stream or a YouTube video. You're just streaming video and you're watching it, but there's a massive difference in the fact that your Twitch stream can be 5, 10, 20, 30 seconds slow, and that's not really a problem. Your game stream needs to be no more than 0.1 second slow. Otherwise, it's going to make you feel sick. It's going to feel janky. It's going to feel borderline unplayable. So not only is it consuming a huge amount of bandwidth because you've got a 1080p, 60 FPS constant stream that's probably not particularly compressed because compression takes time, and you don't have time in this situation. And then that's all running on the sort of highest priority bandwidth they can possibly offer. That is not cheap at all. So I was looking at a article about, it's from a few years ago, about 2017, 2018. There's an article on how to essentially do close to what Eve Anywhere is doing, but like for a DIY. So the intention of this article is basically to teach you how to do it as if you wanted to play with your own Steam library, for example, using Azure. Think GeForce Now, but DIY. And they, as per Eve Anywhere, they rent a virtual machine with a graphics card, they set up some special software, and they stream. And the cost for this is astronomical. It was $2.62 an hour. And knowing how much Eve players like to sit in station and spin before a fleet, I don't think CCB is going to be that happy with paying $20 while you're waiting for your fleet not doing anything. So the pricing model is going to be interesting.
Yeah, $2.62 an hour, right? While just sitting in a system, looking at local and cloaked up, right?
I just think that
cloaky campers are not going to be popular.
I really suspect that the next step in internet backbone stuff is going to have to be some sort of hardware solution to compression, especially because
there are such things.
Yeah, and I think that's going to explode and become like the next phase of services, because otherwise you can't get something like this to an effective price point, right? And you can't get it, as you said, fast enough. It needs to be something that is ultra fast, hardware based, really just running on. Because fundamentally, if you take something like when I am just browsing the Eve market, the compression of that should be perfect because I'm not changing anything, right? The change between states is like microscopic, so it should actually not take any bandwidth.
It should take very little, yeah.
And the shorter latency that you have between, where you are and the servers also, equates to a better experience as well. So, not wanting to sort of, go the, sort of promote the whole Tesla-y kind of sort of area of, sort of the private market or anything like that anymore. But, if you have the Starlink kind of system, chances are like you could have fairly decent latency.
I think the point is that the algorithms are so well known and they're so good now. Someone is again asking us to do a shout out to Elon Musk with the whole medical stuff. But that again, this is just another Elon Musk taking something and putting a stamp on it, almost Trump style. This existed before. The point is that these negative masking algorithms and looking for differences and all that stuff, it is so far ahead. And putting that on a dedicated hardware platform from something like, it could be something like NVIDIA, would be mind-blowing. It would open up this entire industry of cloud stuff and streaming services. And we need that. And I don't think it's going to work until we get those.
Yeah, it's going to work, yeah, but it's just not that massively cost effective. But I think it is also still worth bearing in mind that $2.62 number I quoted is a few years old, and so things like sort of price to performance ratio of hardware in general has improved, and that's also buying as an individual, and you also get significant discounts when it comes to services like Azure by what they call what do they call it? You pre-book how many devices you want, literally years in advance. So you might say, I want 200 Eve Anywhere clients available, and I'm going to pay for those 2 years in advance. And we are talking you will pay years in advance truly to get the kind of good pricing. and then I want a flexible amount beyond that. So I've at least got 200 that I know are always available and they're cheap, and then we can flex beyond that. And I would hope the cheaper ones, you can probably get them well below $1 an hour, but we're still looking at this kind of thing being very expensive to run. And the only thing I can think of is when, well, we know pretty much for sure EVE Anywhere is not going to be free beyond your first 90-minute, I'm a new character, new alpha, I just want to try the game situation.
Just going to say that from a business point of view, this is also really useful, right? If your model is that much like futures, you can basically do budgeting backwards, right? You can both get it to, if you book and buy these things so much in advance and in massive quantities, you can kind of start doing speculation on the development of the technology and actually budget later profit now and actually do a loss leader. The models that could be applied to get this tech to move forward fast is so easy peasy.
I'm literally there sort of thinking to myself, Caleb has put his marketing cap on, as it were, in this particular stance.
But that's the thing. The whole thing with budgeting in now, what's coming 3 or 5 years down the line, that's normal now in business. It's not a novel thing. And operating on ordering and booking these things in advance and knowing that the savings are coming in the future, that means the profit is going to rise in the future massively, because this technology is going to be not just viable but very popular and most likely dominating the market field. So this is what you need to do now, because it's expensive to put all that infrastructure out. And I was about to do a little bit of a stab at the US and the UK, where the internet service needs to start rolling out so these things can actually be profitable there as well.
Well, this is going to have to be a decision point for CCP. Sorry, McLeod. I just
no. That makes sense. I was just going to basically wrap up and be like, well, we could go on as is always the case for quite some time on this, but we should probably wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching, and I guess we'll see you on the next one, which will be next
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Obviously, the US time zone daily show with Matterall will be on later on. But have a good rest of the weekend, and we'll see.
And a little shout out to a rarity. To anyone that's like FC interested, Sister Bliss, the head of the initiative, is actually going to be on a show with Pando today. So
yes,
I'm going to give a shout out to that as well, because that's not something that happens often. And Initiative, as always, have been doing weird and interesting shenanigans in EVE Online. So even though we have a non-player news rule, I'm going to break it with that, because you have to go and check that one out.
Yeah, you should. You definitely should. He doesn't come on talk shows and that kind of thing that often. So, you should definitely check that out. But from us, it'll be goodbye, and we'll see you on Tuesday, and have a good rest of the weekend.